This is the story of a 14-year-old crazy girl who falls in love with anyone. Similarly, she falls madly in love with one of her tenants. To get him, she crosses many limits. Let's see what a 14-year-old girl can do to get that tenant. So the story begins and we see Nick. Nick recently got a job in a new city. Now Nick come to the new city and was looking for a house to rent. He saw many houses in the city, but he did not like any of them. Disappointed, Nick goes to see a house outside the city. Then suddenly a girl comes skating in front of his car. But Nick also immediately applies the brakes and saves that girl. After that, the girl leaves without saying anything to him. After this, Nick meets the owner Martha. Martha takes Nick to show the house and says it is very peaceful here. So Nick, you will not have any problem working here. After seeing the house, Nick likes that house very much and Nick immediately rents that house. Then Nick slowly shifts his stuff to his new house. Then the same girl comes again. The girl who come in front of Nick's car is named Adrian. Adrian is none other than Martha's daughter. Then Adrian's friend Sean comes to him. Adrian tells Sean that today only my mom has kept a new tenant. You go and see who he is. Now Sean is very upset and goes to see Nick, who is doing some shifting work inside. Then Nick also tries to talk to Sean, but Sean gets a little shy and goes away. Then Sean goes to Adrian and Adrian asks Sean, how did you like him? To which Sean says, what should I say, Adrian? He is brilliant and you will like him. On the other hand, today is Nick's first day in the office and Nick leaves the office on the first day itself. Then Nick goes to the office meeting, where during that time he meets Amy, who is the supervisor here. Now on the very first day, Nick comes late to the office, so Nick's boss gets very angry at him and says, Amy, you have to keep an eye on Nick's work. After this, when Nick was cleaning his car at home, Adrian came there and asked him, do you have a girlfriend or not? Nick replies that you are still a child, that you should not pay attention to all these things. But Adrian started liking Nick and that is why she tried to flirt with him. One night, Nick was doing some important work of his office when Adrian comes there and she came close to Nick and asked, will you want to be my boyfriend? Nick feels a bit weird out and asks Adrian, are you only 14? On which Adrian says that now I am going to be 15 years old. Now Nick does not feel comfortable with Adrian, so he tells Adrian to leave from here. The next day morning, when Nick was taking a bath in the bathroom, he heard the sound of someone coming. So when Nick calls out and asks who is it, Adrian's voice comes and she says that it is me. Nick tells Adrian, don't you have any work? You come here whenever you want. Then when Nick was changing clothes after taking a bath in his room, then Adrian secretly sees him without clothes from outside, seeing which Adrian is very happy. Then when Nick gets ready and leaves for the office, Adrian tells Nick, a party has been organized at my house tonight and you have to come there. After that, Nick says, I have very little time and I am also very busy with my work. If I get time, I will come. Saying that, Nick leaves for his office. After this, when Nick reaches his office, he is very surprised to see his project. This was not the file of the article on which Nick had worked day and night. Now Nick felt as if all his work was wasted. And Nick thinks that if my boss reads this, he might fire me from the job. Then his boss checks that article and the boss likes that article very much. Nick's boss promotes him and gives him the post of manager. That very night, Nick gets ready and goes to the party at Adrian's house. There Nick meets Martha and her husband John. Adrian was also there and was entertaining everyone by playing the piano. The party continues and Adrian is alone. She comes out. Then Nick also comes there and says, Adrian, you play the piano very well, and also praises her. But Adrian tells Nick, leave all these things and tell me, how did your boss like that article? On which Nick says, Adrian, did you write that article? But how can you write that article? You are still a little girl. Then Adrian says to Nick, Nick, what do you know about me right now? Due to which Nick gets angry and starts scolding Adrian. and Adrian gets upset with Nick's words. Now to make Adrian happy, Nick takes her with him on a long drive at night. They both go to a deserted lighthouse where Adrian becomes romantic as soon as he reaches there and starts kissing Nick holding his hands. But then Nick forbids her and says that all this is wrong, Adrian, after which both of them return home. The next morning, when Nick was doing his work, he looked out of the window. Nick sees that Adrian is laying outside in small clothes. Now seeing Adrian like this, Nick starts getting attracted to her, but then he controls his feelings. Now after a few days, Nick organized a party at home to celebrate his becoming a manager, where his friend Amy was also present, who had now become Nick's girlfriend. Then Adrian, standing at a distance, sees both of them together. Then she starts getting mad in anger because Adrian did not want Nick to become the boyfriend of anyone else other than me. Then after a while, when Amy goes to the forest to collect wood for cooking food, then Adrian also comes there and threatens Amy and says that Nick is only mine, and if you come between us, then no one will be worse than me. Then after the party, when Nick and Amy are at home, Amy tells Nick that your Adrian is very strange. I think she has gone mad in your love. But Nick laughs it off and tells Amy that is not what you are thinking. She is just an innocent child. After some time, when Nick was doing his work, then Adrian calls him and says, "Hey Nick, will you go for a walk with me?" But Nick refuses her and says that I am busy right now. Then Nick finishes his office work and starts looking for a childhood photo of him, which was on his desk till yesterday, but today it is missing from there. Nick thinks that maybe Adrian has stolen my photo, so Nick secretly enters Adrian's house so that he can bring back his photo. Then when Nick goes to Adrian's room, Nick finds his room very strange. Nick was looking at his stuff when he heard a sound from the bathroom where Adrian was preparing to take a bath. On seeing Adrian, Nick hides in a cupboard. Meanwhile, Adrian comes there. Now as soon as she comes there, Adrian realizes that Nick is also hiding there. So Adrian deliberately takes off all her clothes in front of him. Then when Nick was leaving Adrian's house, he met Adrian's dad, John, at the door of the house. John had returned home after shopping. So seeing Nick, John asks, "What are you doing here?" Nick replies to John that I come to give Adrian her book back. Then John hands over his stuff to Nick and takes him to his room. He asks Nick to come up to the basement with him. In the basement, John shows Nick a big toy and says, "I made this for Adrian." While the two were talking, Adrian also come here. Then John asks Adrian, "Which book did you give to Nick?" Nick gets scared after listening to John, but Adrian says that I gave Nick a love story novel. Nick gets a little relieved after listening to Adrian and goes from there. After a while, Nick goes to Adrian and Nick says to Adrian, "Thank you for saving me." Adrian says that there is no need to say thank you to me. I know that you also love me. Nick gets angry after listening to this and says, "Look Adrian, I will clear everything for you right now. You are very young for me and nothing like this can ever happen between us." Adrian gets angry after listening to Nick, but she does not say anything to Nick. The next day when Nick brings his girlfriend to show her the new car, they both are shocked to see the condition of the car because someone has damaged it. Nick's new car was completely ruined. Seeing the bad condition of the car, Nick understands that this is Adrian's work. So Nick goes to Adrian's house to complain to his mom and dad. John asks Adrian, "Adrian, did you ruin Nick's car?" But Adrian says, "No dad, why would I do that?" But Nick was sure that Adrian ruined his car. After some time, when Nick was fixing his car, Sean comes to him and says, "I want to tell you something, but not there. You meet me behind the black hill at 7 p.m. Saying this, Sean leaves from there. After this, Adrian and Sean were horse riding in their farmhouse. During this, Sean fell from the horse on which she was riding, due to the belt suddenly breaking and one of Sean's arms broke. This work was done by none other than Adrian. Then at 7 p.m. that evening, Nick was waiting for Sean on the Black Hill. When Adrian arrived there and asked, "Who are you waiting for here?" Nick says that no one. Then Adrian says that the one you are waiting for is in the hospital and you should go and see him. The next morning, there was a meeting in Nick's office where he had to submit his presentation, on which Nick had been working hard for the last 3 weeks. But as soon as Nick plugs his pen drive into the computer, there is no file in it. Seeing all this, Nick's mind is shaken because all the work that Nick had done for 3 weeks has disappeared. Then Nick goes home and immediately calls Amy and says that all my files have been deleted from the pen drive and this is Adrian's work. No one else can do this except Adrian. Then Nick's eyes fall on a basement which was built under his house. Nick goes to the basement and sees that Adrian is collecting his stuff like a psycho and doing black magic on him. Seeing Nick's mind is disturbed, and Nick first of all closes the basement and then completes all his work by working day and night. During this, Adrian calls him many times, but Nick does not answer her calls. Now Nick also gets the lock of his house changed so that Adrian can't come inside his house from behind. After completing all his work, Nick now goes to a cell phone to hide his belongings. He goes out in search for a new house. Then Nick meets an old lady who shows him her house. And Nick also likes the house in which he was going to shift the next week. Now when Nick comes back to his house, he meets Amy, who was brought liquor for him. Then both of them drink liquor and start taking. During this time, both come close to each other and become intimate. On the other hand, Adrian was lost in Nick's memories and had gone completely mad. The next morning, when Amy returns to her house, Adrian also arrives there and closes Amy's gate from outside, after which she leaves a beehive inside Amy's house and the bees directly attack Amy. Amy tries to escape from there, but she was hanged inside the house as the door was locked from outside. The next day, Adrian participates in a horse riding competition. She thought that Nick would come to see her, but this does not happen. In anger, Adrian goes straight to Nick's office and in front of everyone, she says to Nick, "Darling, why did you not come to see my race?" Hearing this, Nick takes Adrian out by the hand in anger and threatens him, saying, "You stay away from me." Adrian suddenly starts screaming like a mad person, listening to which everyone present in the office feels as if Nick is forcing himself on her. Then Nick finishes his work and goes to his new house. Then his landlady refuses to give him the house because Adrian had come and lied to his landlady that Nick was a drug dealer. Now Nick becomes even more upset and returns to his house. Nick comes back home and sees that the police have come there. The police also arrest Nick as soon as they see him because Adrian had falsely accused them that Nick had forced himself on me. Then Adrian also comes there. She had made himself such that everyone would believe her upon seeing him. Then the police interrogate Nick and ask him, "Did you force yourself on Adrian?" Nick says, "I have not done anything like this. I am innocent. That girl is mad and she is lying." After some time, Nick gets bail, and this bail is arranged by his boss because his boss has full faith in Nick. Now until Nick is proven right, he is fired from the company's job. After this, when Nick was packing his stuff to leave that house, then Sean comes there and says Adrian has done all this intentionally. She is a psycho. If she gets after someone, then she does not leave him so easily. Nick says that now it does not matter. I am leaving this city anyway. You go from here now. Now after a while, Nick heard Sean's screams. Nick runs to Adrian's house and sees that Adrian is again doing black magic on him. Nick is shocked and then Adrian comes from behind Nick. She says, "I am asking you for the last time. Would you like to be my boyfriend?" Nick once again refuses her. hearing which Adrian goes mad and attacks Nick with the stick. Nick runs to the upstairs storeroom to save himself from her. There Nick sees that Adrian had tied Shan to the same toy. Nick tries to free Shan, but Adrian comes there and attacks him again. Nick also catches hold of her and starts beating her. Then John also comes there and starts beating Nick. But Adrian comes from behind and attacks her dad and knocks him unconscious. Then Adrian tries to attack Nick again, but Nick knocks her unconscious with a punch. After this, Adrian is sent to a mental hospital. But even there, Adrian does not stop her antics and falls madly in love with her doctor. On the other hand, Nick and Amy move to another city together, where both of them now live happily. And with this, the story ends. So friends, how did you like this story? Do tell us in the comments, and for such movie recaps, subscribe to our channel Movie Recap English. See you in the next movie. Bye bye.